And I am live on a Wednesday evening with my dear brother, my dear friend, John Meadows. John, brother, how have you been?
I've been good. I've been busy having fun, but life is good. Yesterday was my 1 year anniversary from having a heart attack, and I've bounced back and doing awesome now. So it's been a good day. It's good. Yesterday.
That is wonderful, brother. 1 year anniversary. Are you kidding me, John? Really?
Yeah. It's went by fast, and I mean, obviously it was a tough time, but I don't know if you've kept up with kind of my medical updates, but the part of my heart that lacked blood flow from the blood clot that was damaged is I'm getting some of the tissue, like some of the cardiac tissue is rebuilding itself. So there's some really good things happening there, and I'm very, very thankful. I feel very blessed because that's a pretty rare thing.
Yeah.
Cardiac remodeling is not something that is common, so I'm very, very happy and feel very blessed right now.
Brother, you definitely are very, very blessed, not only because of that, but because you've got an incredible family as well. And thank the good Lord that you're doing so much better. I guess really the one thing that would probably be in a lot of people's minds before we begin talking about the real fun part, the lifting part, are you able to push the boundaries and lift heavy? Can you do that? You can continue doing that?
Well, I hope so, because that's what I've been doing the last 6 or 7 months. My doctor was very, very clear about exercise direction. And, based on my symptoms, or I should say lack thereof, once I got 2-3 months past my heart attack, I failed to have any more symptoms. I felt great,
yeah,
which was, very shocking to them because my ejection fraction had dropped so low and I had actual damage to my heart in the left ventricle. Which is not a good thing. But I showed and presented no symptoms. So they said, well, keep doing your training because we suspect that's a big part of your recovery. Your heart is so strong that losing some function with a heart that's kind of overachieving, it's got, like if you have an engine that's 700 horsepower, it's still okay if you bring it down to 500 horsepower. So they encouraged me to continue to train hard, and I haven't had any bad symptoms. My heart function continues to improve. So they've given me the green light. If they told me not to, I would back off. But I'm careful. I don't go too insane, but I push myself though.
Yeah, and rightfully so. You should, because your videos that you've been putting out, for people that they don't know, you got to go to youtube.com Mountain Dog 1, I believe. Sub to that. You've got a lot of great material, and I noticed one gentleman in the chat is saying, is this video going to be a live workout video? Let me let people know, God willing, I will be visiting my dear friend John in the summer, and you'll be able to see a video of us throwing around some weights there, God willing. Brother, when it comes to lifting, I know a lot of people have, a lot of stuff in their minds. People love biceps. People love chest. People love the common stuff. The stuff people. No. Before we even get to that, let me pick your brain. My favorite body part to work out might be different from yours. My favorite is back. What would be your favorite?
It's chest now, but for most of my career was legs because I really enjoyed squatting, and I enjoyed pushing myself really hard, kind of to the breaking point. And there's nothing that can do that like a good leg workout. Like a good leg workout will challenge your manhood. And but now I just really enjoy training chest. But for many years it was legs.
When it comes to legs, what would you tell people out there, and for people watching, not only Catholics, everybody can pick up the tips that John gives. John, what is if anybody would ask you, what are your two or your main go-to for legs? Do you have a main go-to where you say, you know what, I feel great after doing this movement?
Well, it's pretty variable because, like, for instance, I love squats, but a lot of people, their lower back can't really handle squats. And I'm kind of in that I'm kind of in that territory now where I got to be really careful. You know, I'm almost 50 years old. So, you know, loading up hundreds and hundreds of pounds on my back isn't necessarily a good thing anymore. For many years, it was squats. But here's what I would tell you. There's no one exercise that you have to do. If you can't squat, you can leg press, you know, where your back is supported. So it's not so much about the exercise, it's what you put into the exercise. So for instance, I didn't squat, like 2013 is when I quit squatting really heavy. But my legs didn't really change. They didn't get worse. When I had to switch other exercises, my legs stayed developed and they stayed strong, because the other exercises I replaced squatting movements with, I still worked hard. My hack squats, my leg presses, I'm a big believer in training hamstrings, so all my leg curls. The bottom line with muscle growth is you have to create tension, mechanical tension. You have to have enough weight to create mechanical tension. That doesn't mean you have to use heavy weight. You could use moderate weight, which is better for your joints, as long as you're closer to failure. Because although you may not be calling on all your muscle fibers to fire to lift a heavy weight, if you're doing more repetitions, then muscle fibers get tired, so they have to call in additional muscle fibers to help produce force. So the deeper you get into a set, the more valuable that set becomes. That's why training, you don't have to go to failure every single set. That's not advisable. But training hard and really pushing yourself, that's why it works so well, because you're getting all your muscle fibers to fire, to work, and they're under mechanical tension. So that's more of the goal as opposed to just having a magical exercise.
Yeah. And what a really good point that you make there, brother, because I have noticed not only for legs, but when it comes to various things, biceps, shoulders, chest, triceps, that there are many movements that, for instance, let's say that you want to do back or biceps or whatever. If that day you decide to substitute a different workout from your favorite one, it doesn't then in turn mean that you're going to shrink. As some people think in their head, well, you know what, if I don't go crazy to the point of, frying my CNS, that I'm going to shrink. I think people have a big misconception there, thinking that they need to maybe, max every workout. I mean, that is a bit of a kind of a mentality that maybe what I've noticed, I don't know if you've noticed, has tended to drive people out of the gym rather than into the gym.
Yeah, it's just not a sustainable philosophy. Trust me, I love going hard. I love pushing myself. But there are times when I know it's time to pull back. You know what? It's time to ease up. It's time to incorporate an extra rest day. It's time to not go close to failure. And those things, that old saying, take one step back to go two forward.
Oh, yeah.
That's absolutely true. Sometimes you just got to let your body rest. Weight training itself is inherently catabolic, although, you're stimulating muscle protein synthesis, but you're breaking your body down.
Sure.
So if you don't recover and rest properly, your body can't rebuild itself. So the recovery part is every bit as critical as the actual weight training. And when people don't recover, that's when they get burnt out. That's when they start losing strength. They start having CNS issues and they can't sleep. They have a rapid heartbeat. That's what's brought on usually when people they don't let their body recover enough.
Yeah. That I think the one thing people don't realize is you don't rest properly, and then not only will you find yourself stressed out, the stress will add to it'll all begin to pile up, and then you're not going to perform well if you go to the gym trying to work out. If you do go to the gym trying to work out, and I know this because I've done it, I'm sure you have as well. When you're stressed, exhausted, haven't rested well, and you go and you try to hit a PR, or you go and you try to go crazy, you're gonna mess yourself up.
Yeah, it's not an optimal lifting state, right? So you can get injured. There's a number of bad things that can happen. So you're absolutely right.
Now, when you as you know, well, of course, you've built a massive set of arms. When it comes to your biceps, triceps. When it comes to biceps, and by the way,
hey Alexander, come here and say hi. I already fed him. Only give him a little bit. Come here and say hi to him. I found him earlier. Say hi to Wayne.
Hello.
How are you?
Good.
I got to tell you, brother, he looks a lot like you. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
You have a wonderfully beautiful name.
Yeah.
Who, me?
Mary, right?
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about me because, yeah, Mary's pretty amazing.
There you go. Wonderful getting a chance to see you all. And people love it. Whenever we have John on the show, I got to tell you, people love John. He's got a kind of attitude that is just so positive. The advice he gives is so amazing. You all are just incredible people. Just want to tell you all, for people that are watching, John is very loved, and we love having him on all the time.
Thanks. All right. I think we're going to get something to eat. See ya.
You mentioned one thing that I've noticed you've said before, brother, is that you and some people don't have an incredible mind-muscle connection when it comes to your biceps. You've pointed that out before. A lot of people will then will then say, I don't feel it when I'm curling. And you've given incredible advice in your videos. So for people that are tuning in, I want them to go and look at John. Go and look at John's site. Go and look at John's videos. Amazing stuff he has out there. But for biceps, and I know people will probably throw tomatoes at me if I don't ask. People love curling. What is your go-to for biceps? Or do you have a go-to where you would say, you know what, William, I feel great when I do that particular movement?
Well, the movement that I really like, you got to be real. I wouldn't do it first. I would do it second or third because I want my elbows to be warmed up. Is an actual preacher curl. Remember Larry Scott, the old Scott curls?
Oh, yeah.
Like a preacher curl to me develops that lower part of your bicep where it inserts into your elbow. So you get this nice, full, thick looking bicep. That'd probably be my favorite, actually, is the good old preacher curls.
Now, and here's where it does become interesting. Do you prefer, or would you ever preacher curl with an Olympic barbell, or do you prefer the easy curl bar to preacher curl?
Well, a lot of people have issues with their wrist when they use a straight bar. I don't really have any issues with my wrist. I don't think one is more superior than the other. I think it's just whatever feels better on your wrist and your elbows.
Right. Yeah. No, I totally agree. And I think I love the feeling that I get whenever I do preacher curls. It feels great, John. I mean, it feels really, really good. For people that would then say, well, you know what? I don't feel good with grabbing the easy curl bar, or I don't feel good grabbing, the straight bar. Do you think they can get a good enough workout in on a machine?
Absolutely. Or dumbbells. Absolutely. I mean, like I said, there's no like magic exercise. It just comes down to how hard you work the exercise. Like you could take like a dumbbell curl, 2 dumbbells, supinate, stay supinated, and just stand there. I did that today, actually. Just stand there, let your arms go down, and just curl with a supinated grip the whole time. You could do hammer curls. I've got a version of hammer curls I think you'd really enjoy, where I sit down on a lat pull-down machine facing away, and I sit back a little bit. I tilt back a little bit so that when my arm is hanging down, it's actually in a stretch. So if you could picture like this is my head and my arms are hanging down and they're kind of in a stretch, right? And then I do a hammer curl like that. And think about the knee pad where you put your legs in when you do a lat pull down. Oh, yeah. So the back of my arm is resting against that, and it's making sure the upper part of my arm doesn't move. So the only thing moving is from here down, doing the hammer curl. That's another exercise that is just phenomenal. I think I call it like an incline hammer curl. I got a video of that on my YouTube channel, but that's another awesome exercise, and it's not a barbell or a dumbbell. I mean, it's not a barbell or easy curl bar.
And that I've got to try that. That sounds to me like that would be incredible.
Yeah, it's kind of similar to the preacher curl. You want to be a little warmed up when you do it, and the reason why is because you're putting a pretty good stretch on the muscle.
Yep.
And I like exercises that put a lot of stress on the muscle in a stretch position, but only after there's a lot of blood in there. Yep. I don't like to really stretch a muscle when it doesn't have blood in it. But once there's blood in it, once you've done something else, and it's full blood, then you can kind of go to town with a stretched type position.
Yeah, you bring up a really good point there, because if you're not careful, if you don't get the blood flowing, you can definitely get injured. And injury is something you want to avoid, because you get injured, you spend much more time out of the gym rather than in the gym. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, and this is why I spend so much time talking about exercise sequences. Do this exercise before this exercise before this exercise, because there's, people tend to look for studies to determine what to do. And there are no studies on you should do a leg curl before a squat, for example. There aren't studies that cover that kind of stuff, because it's really hard to quantify injuries and as it relates to exercise sequences. But having done this for many, many years, I can tell you that the exercise sequences themselves really play into staying healthy and staying in one piece.
Yeah, that is a good point. The fact that we want longevity when doing this. I mean, anybody that begins lifting wants to be able to do it many years into the future. And you bring up a really good point there. I think one thing that you emphasize so much in your videos, which I think you don't find in a lot of other videos, is joint health. I mean, you got to take care of those joints, because really, if you don't, you begin to break down, and you're not going to, being in incredibly excruciating pain, you're not going to want to get to the gym and lift if you don't take care of your bones.
Yeah, and joint health is also actually training. So if you don't train, people just aren't very active, then you don't have the blood flow, you don't have the range of motion in your joints. So a good exercise program with weights using a good full range of motion is very good for your joints and for your longevity, actually. So it's not just for people trying to get giant biceps. If your goal is to just stay healthy and be able to move and feel good, there's nothing better. There is a ton of studies that have come out in the last 5 years on kind of what they call the true fountain of youth.
Yeah.
And guess what? Weightlifting is at the top of the list.
Yep.
Every single time they do a study, they're like, wow, people were healthy, they felt better, their joints were in better shape, they had less degenerative diseases, they had more quality of life, all these things contributing to a good high quality of life. A lot of them really tied back to a good weightlifting program, a resistance type program.
Yeah, no doubt, which I think fitting in perfectly with what we're talking about. The fact that we knew that a number of the early apostles were fishermen, such as St. Peter, the fact that we know that his bone structure, everything that has been done throughout history, gives us indication that he stayed active, stayed healthy, being very physically active, being an individual that would have taken in a good amount of protein in his diet. He was a heavy built figure, which, you want to stay active. You want to, in order to continue being able to do what you love to do. And for people that are tuning in, I think the best kind of advice is really, and you can tell me what you think about this, brother, not the idea of, well, you know what, if I go to the gym, I'm going to hurt all over and what have you. You feel great after going to the gym. You need to get active, get the blood flowing, get healthier for yourself and for your family and your future. Isn't that right, brother?
Yeah, the only people that should be crawling out of the gym in pain are people, like me when I was in the peak of my competing, where you really need to destroy your muscle fibers. But for the vast majority of us, and me now, for 99% of us and 99.9% of us, you should feel good when you leave the gym. You should feel great. You got a great workout in. You should feel mentally clear. You should feel like some of the stress in your life has kind of left your body, because training is a great stress reliever. You should absolutely walk out and feel outstanding when you leave the gym.
Really, really good advice there. When it comes to triceps, I'll tell you my favorite, and then I'm curious what yours would be. By the way, for people wondering, I watched a video John did. I don't know if he did it a month and a half ago, 2 months ago. I tried it, the pin press, and I got to say that it was an incredible workout. I loved it. For me, I would put that up there with one of my essential ones when doing triceps. I also love doing lying skull crushers. What would be your favorite or a couple of favorites when it comes to triceps?
If I had to pick a favorite, one of them I really like is a floor press. So picture laying on the floor and using a medium grip and doing a bench press. So a floor press with a medium grip, because it's short, it's a shorter range of motion, right? Because your elbows can only go down the floor.
Yep.
So it's very tricep focused from here to here. It's a great way to overload your triceps. That's one of my favorites, the floor press. I do like anything where my tricep, the belly of the muscle is really stretched out. So you know how you grab the rope and you kind of bend your body down so you're looking down at the floor. You extend your arms like this. That's one of my favorites because it really stretches out the long head, the thicker part of the inner part of your tricep. Then if I had to pick one more, I would say probably a regular push down, but I like to use two little handles, single handles, D handles, and I like the spongy grips, not the metal D handles, the ones that have the really soft spongy grip on them so you can kind of grip into it. And I like to do push downs with those.
I tried that and I saw your advice in that. I think the one thing that I loved about that was that you don't get wrist pain when you do that. It felt great. I was able to do that without any kind of pain. The pump was fantastic. It felt great. And the thing that I really, really enjoyed, I felt like it was really targeting the triceps. You were really, really, sculpting those triceps. To me, it was one of the best ones I've done. Much prefer it to maybe any other kind of pull down. I really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites. I've kind of made that exercise really popular. That wrist, and I like being able to do things where I have freedom of movement with my wrist. Like if I do a pull down for my back, I will use the single grip where I can move my wrist rather than having a bar where my wrist is locked into place really hard. I want to be able to move it the way I want to move it. Yeah.
Now, for people that would go to your videos and see you doing the pin press, would you say that is a good workout to generally build mass in your triceps?
Yeah, pin presses build a lot of strength and mass. I started doing those at a powerlifting gym actually, for strength. We did them over there for the lockout part of our bench press.
Oh wow!
So yeah, that's where that actually came from. Was when I was over at Westside Barbell. We used that movement as something to really help our lockout when we were doing the bench press.
Incredible. So, and that also, by the way you set it up, seems to me to be a pretty safe workout as well, isn't it?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Yeah. I really, really enjoyed that. And for people that are wondering, go to I believe it is youtube.com.
It's just Mountain Dog 1 on YouTube.
Mountain Dog 1, and they can find out. I mean, you're putting out videos almost every other day, right?
Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Yep.
Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And the kind of information that you're putting out there, I got to say, John, is incredible. It's really, really good advice. I love the videos that you've put out that deal with back as well. I love working out back. And I know it might not be you might love doing chest right now, but I know you love back as well. What would you say? What is your favorite back movement?
Well, my back was the hardest area for me to develop. That was an area that was very challenging for me. So I had to get very creative. I would read all the magazines and what Lee Haney did. And, they were doing all their routines and muscle and fitness, but it never really worked for me. I had to kind of figure out some other exercises. So that's where the whole Meadows row came up, which now I get so many comments on now. There's a row called a one-arm barbell row. You might want to look up. Those are they're a little unique. They're still very basic. You're still bending over and rowing a barbell. I mean, that's as basic as it gets. Yep. But they're easier on your back. They're the problem I always had with regular barbell bent over rows was in my lower back, would become a weak point. It would become the limiting factor, and it would do more stress on my lower back than it did on my lats, which is where I wanted the muscle to grow, my lats.
Yep.
So the other movements, the one arm barbell row and the Meadows row that are on my YouTube are probably my two favorites.
And I can tell you from the years of doing bent over barbell rows, you put so much emphasis in the lower back that once you begin going into doing multiple sets of it, once you begin going even remotely heavy, because you know this, John, you begin lifting, you really like the workout. You're going to say, let me add more weight. Let me add more weight. You know very well the lower kind of inflammation that you get there in the lower back, it can be really, really painful. And rather than saying, whoa, what a great workout I got in my lat region, you feel the pain in your lower back. At the end of the day,
right.
Is it worth that kind of pain? And I think really another area that we enter into is really longevity. How can, in my opinion, how can you maintain lifting a very heavy amount of weight for many years and bent over barbell rows? Eventually it's going to catch up to you.
Yeah, you have to look at risk versus reward for all your movements. Like, for example, if I want to go squat 500 right now, could I do it? Yeah, I probably could, but what's the risk? The risk is really high that I could hurt my lower back. What's the reward? Well, it's probably just mental. It's probably just my ego talking, right?
Yep.
Whereas I could do another exercise where there wouldn't be as much risk, but there'd be a lot more reward. So really what you have to do as you get older, the trick to longevity, it's those exercise sequences, and it's evaluating risk versus reward. Like a barbell bent over row to me is a very high risk, low reward exercise, when there are so many other exercises that are low risk and high reward. So you can go even harder and not have to worry about your lower back. It's essentially been in an isometric contraction holding hundreds of pounds for a long time under tension, which is what causes all that pain eventually as you get older. So as you get older, you really have to just start asking yourself, am I doing this for my ego? Or should I maybe switch to another exercise that's safer? Doesn't mean you have to go easy. It just means you have to pick an exercise that you can go harder on, but safely.
Yeah, that is a really, really good point. For people that maybe don't know, you invented a movement called the Meadows row that you made very popular. In my opinion, it was a fantastic kind of exercise. What exactly is that for people that may be wondering, well, how do you do the Meadows row? I know you've got it on your page. I recommend people go and look at it for themselves, but what exactly is it, and what led you to say, you know what, I want to incorporate a movement like this?
Well, I'd love to tell you I'm a genius and I had this great plan and I had the physics figured out for the exercise, but really what happened was I was doing a back workout and I saw somebody had left a T-bar out that was still loaded with weight, and I literally just bent over beside it, picked it up and rode it, and I was like, wow, that felt pretty good. So I bent down again and I rode it and I was like, this is really good. So I was with a training partner and I said, hey man, try this. Tell me what you think. So he bent over, he grabs the T-bar, he rows it. He's like, wow, this is awesome. And that was really it. So really what you do, it's, you don't have to do it on a T-bar. I have other versions of it on my YouTube channel. You can use a landmine, that's where you have the kind of the long thing where the bar slides into it, the sleeve with the metal cup. But basically you row perpendicular to your body. So normally you do a row where you're kind of pulling in like this. This is a row where you're perpendicular to the bar and you're rowing more like this, and it's more upper back, upper lat, lower traps, rhomboids. But it's a tremendous exercise, and you're using one arm. So your other arm, you can brace, you can lean on it against your legs. So you support your lower back. So you got that nice support structure for your lower back. So you can really sit there and focus on doing the row and executing the row without hurting your lower back.
Which you do not have that kind of support when it comes to the bent over barbell row. You don't have that kind of support. which right now people that know me and are watching are probably thinking, well, why don't you take your own advice? And eventually I will take my own advice, and eventually I will stop being a fool and going very heavy when I do bent over barbell. But you know very well, it's very, very hard sometimes to get out of what you really love doing, even if you know that, I know I'm not going to be able to do that many, many more years down the road. So eventually I'll start removing that from my workout. But today's not that day. But I love the Meadows row, brother. I love it, man. It's one of my favorite movements. And I think you bring up a really good point that you're able to give yourself that support. And really that kind of support is what you need to not hurt yourself, to not hurt your lower back. I think that's a very, very good point. And another thing that I enjoy about your videos is they're very practical in the sense that people can go into the gym and they can do the workout. And even a lot of them, people can do them at home as well. I know I've got a really good friend of mine who loves doing your workout plans and does them at home. So do you ever, it's a good question, do you ever devise them thinking in mind, well, you know what, I want to do this for the everyday gym goer and maybe even the person at home that can, do it with a fairly simple setup? Do you ever devise it with that in mind, or you just say, you know what, I'm going to put together a great, insane workout?
Well,
a little of both.
For me, there's a couple things I'm trying to do. I'm trying to think of how can I best train the muscle, and if that requires pieces of equipment that people don't have at home, I'm still going to do it because that's what I believe is an awesome workout. Yep. But there are a lot of movements that translate well into doing them at home. So I have this thing where I call it exercise index videos. And it's simply taking an exercise that I like and showing how to do it and why it works. Now, a lot of those exercises you can do at home. So you could go to my YouTube channel and you could type in, for example, chest exercise index, and you'll get a playlist of maybe, 30 or 40 exercises, and maybe 20 or 25 of them you might be able to do at home with dumbbells or a barbell. So I don't limit everything I do to just at home because I honestly, man, I love certain machines and I love traveling to new gyms and seeing different machines is kind of one of the things I really enjoy. But for the most part, 70, probably 80% of what I do, you could do it if you had a good, decent home gym.
Yeah. No, yeah, I totally agree. And I, for anybody wondering, the link to John's YouTube is right there down below. And I really appreciate the incredible work that you're doing, brothers. It's really, really great. For you mentioned how right now you really love hitting chest. I mean, everybody's got to love doing chest. You feel great after doing chest. Do you have something in particular that you really like doing? A particular movement that right now you love doing for chest?
I would say there's two I really enjoy. One of them, I don't do flat barbell presses. If I do it pretty light because of that risk versus reward that we were talking about. But what I do like is a slight incline. So I like a little bit of an incline, like 15 degrees, or I like a really high incline. Okay. For some reason, I just feel those angles. I like those angles. They just seem to work well for my body. And the other thing I like is old school dips. And I like doing them the way Vince Garanda taught how to do them. You probably remember that name from the older days. Vince was a guy back in the 70s and 80s. And he had this style of dip where he put his feet out in front of him and he let his elbows flare out a little bit. And so you got your feet out in front, your chin is tucked into your chest, your elbows are flaring out a little bit, not too crazy or you'll hurt your rotator cuff. Yeah. And that's another movement. It's an old school movement for dips that I still really like, or for chest, I'm sorry, that I really like.
I love that movement as well. It feels fantastic. And you bring up a good point. It's an old school, really good movement that you can incorporate. And I mean, a lot of the old school stuff is great. A lot of it is great. Do you have any videos of you incorporating that workout, or do you have that on your channel?
Yeah, so it's a simple search on my channel for dips. I've got a how to do dips, and I explain that version. It's an exercise index video under my chest playlist. Yep.
Awesome, brother. Awesome. Now
We got over 1,000 videos on there.
wow, you've got a ton of videos and the kind of content that you're putting out is really, really good content. Do you ever get people that are there at the gym incorporating workouts that you're filming? Do they ever, do that along with you?
Yeah. There's a lot of people at the gym that, will say, "Hey, am I doing this right? I saw this on your YouTube channel." Yeah, which is great. It makes me happy because that means they're watching the channel.
Yeah, that means that they're watching and you're positively influencing all of them, which is really, really good, brother. Shoulders, you got some great delts, brother. Great delt development there. What do you recommend? What is your favorite when it comes to doing shoulders?
Well, I think one of the problems people have is they don't pay attention to their rear delts, their posterior deltoid. And a really well-developed posterior deltoid kind of gives your shoulders that really bubbly round look from the side. And the other thing is, now this is where I kind of differ from the old school. The old school taught a lot of heavy behind the neck presses.
Oh, yeah.
I find the behind the neck presses can be really hard on your rotator cuff, on your shoulders, create a lot of injuries. You're kind of forcing that internal rotation in your shoulders in an unnatural position with a real heavy weight. So I'm not as big on pressing as most people are. I would rather see them do lots of lateral variations, side laterals, rear laterals, front laterals. I tend to go with more movements like that than I do. You'll never see me do a straight behind the neck press. You'll never see me do that. If I do that, the next morning feels like a bomb went off of my shoulders. They hurt so bad. That's zero reward and 100% risk for me, that exercise. Now, there are some presses I will do. As long as I keep my elbows out in front, as long as I'm coming down to about my chin, I'm not going down, letting my shoulder rotate forward. So, more of a position like this, I'm okay doing that. But this, you won't see me doing that. This, that's okay.
I'm with you there. You can, the kind of injury, I've injured myself many years back in the past doing those kind of movements. Funny enough, you make a really good point there. When you look at old school videos, they really do emphasize doing that workout. And maybe it does work for some people, but the way that I'm built, the kind of pain that you'll eventually feel, to me, is really just isn't worth it. And your advice is fantastic there, brother, that, really any kind of movement, it's giving you a kind of uncomfortable kind of pain, sub it for another movement, which is why in your videos, you provide many different movements, don't you? When it comes to biceps, triceps, back, you don't only have 1, 2, or 3. You have many different movements that many people can go look at your videos and they can incorporate whatever really feels best for them. Isn't that right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of exercises out there. I've probably got, I don't even know if I would guess, 150 to 200 exercises on my channel if I had to just take a wild guess.
Wow, that really, really is incredible. So you've got a wealth of information there. And for people that are wondering as well, go check out I've got to put the link to it. I'll put it right there. On your webpage, people can also go and check it out. You also have your own supplement line, don't you?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's called Granite Supplements. Yep.
Awesome. I really recommend people go over there, check it out. You've probably got some great stuff there. John, you've been incredible. Do you have maybe a few minutes for some questions that the audience might have?
Yeah, absolutely.
Wonderful. You have had, I've got to tell you, brother.
You can ask Mary questions too. Mary's here, so I volunteered her.
Now, let me ask you this. Here's a good one. Do you and Mary ever work out together?
We do, not as much as we used to.
Okay.
But we do here recently. She's getting back into it now, so we're starting to pick up on that again. Yep.
I don't want to put you in the spot there.
I love training with her. I thoroughly enjoy it.
Yeah, yeah, which is great. I mean, to have the support of your partner, you have I imagine you all have a great time when you train together.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little different married because I don't, punish her like other people. But she does good though.
And for people that are wondering, in a very good way, John's workout programs, go check him out on his webpage. Those are punishing, but
Yes,
the reward is an incredible reward. If anybody can get through Creeping Death or Creeping Death 2, hats off to them. I mean,
yeah, those are very advanced, very difficult programs.
yeah, no doubt. Let me look at by the way, people love you. You have had a great audience, John. We've had about between 250 and 300 watching you live. People really, really love you. They love the stuff you're putting out there. So it's just to really encourage you on the incredible work that you're doing in this field. People, when I announced that you were going to be on, people love you, brother. You are a gift to the lifting world. People love you, brother.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm very humbled to hear that.
Definitely. So we have somebody wondering, what is John's opinion on old school calisthenics and the prison calisthenics?
Well, I'm not real familiar with what prison calisthenics are. I haven't been in prison. Old school calisthenics to me, I take as body weight exercises.
Yeah.
And that's actually how I got my start when I was really, really young. Before I went to bed at night, I would do push-ups, I would do sit-ups, and I would do air squats. So, you just kind of squat down with no weight and squat back up.
Yeah.
Then you have kind of the more ballistic movements like the jumping jacks and things like that. But like push-ups and those kinds of things, I think are fantastic. I think they're very underrated. I think they're great. They're not just great for kids. I think they're great for anybody. You knock out 100, 200 push-ups a day, and that's really, really good. That's a big workload. So I think they're great. I don't have any issues with them at all.
Yeah, I totally agree. Louis is wondering, is there any advice on how to activate lats? Like if you stand against a wall, do you have any advice on that? How to activate your lats?
So a couple things. I've got a video specific on lat activation on my channel. Make sure you look at that video because people tell me that that's the most impressive thing they've ever seen for activation of lats. Just as a general technique for training your lats, the biggest problem I see with people is when they're doing a back movement, they just think about pulling with their arm. And it turns it into almost a bicep exercise. What you really want to do is you want to focus on driving your elbow and not pulling with your bicep. So there's a difference between pulling like this with your bicep as opposed to taking your elbow and driving with your elbow and flexing your lat. So in your mind, you got to think, lead with your elbow. This is the mantra that I have with people training back. Lead with your elbow and flex your lats, keep them tight. Lead with your elbow, lead with your elbow. Stop thinking, I'm going to pull with my arm. You almost have to, I'm not going to say totally relax your arm. You can't totally relax it, but you got to really put the tension into my elbow. I got to drive my elbow and feel it in my lats.
That is a very good point because, funny enough, if you want to build that barn door back, at times you gotta put the ego on the back burner. If you literally have to use all of your biceps to make the movement and you're not activating any of your lats, really, what is the point? You're not going to.
Yeah, it's great for your biceps. Like if you want to train biceps, it's great for your biceps. But if you want to train back, you're not going to get much out of it.
Yeah, no, you won't get much out of it at all. And correct me if I'm wrong. You can even get hurt with that kind of a mentality. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, you could tear your bicep for sure with poor form. You'll see that a lot with people that actually deadlift. They'll use an over-under grip and they'll start bending. They'll start as the weight's coming up. You'll see their arms start bending. They'll start pulling with their biceps. And then you got the whole issue with your lower back. And if you've got on most back exercises, not all of them, but on most of them, you want your spine to be neutral. You don't want an excessive arch. A little arch on, like, say, a pull down is cool. That's good. Having your sternum raised is good. But you don't want that really rounded posture. Like if you're doing a bent over row, you have that really rounded posture in your lower back. Your lower back is in a really extreme flex position. I know some people disagree with me on this, but I personally think that's a recipe for disaster. So I'd rather see someone with a really flat back.
I agree. Definitely a recipe for disaster. And you would know, you've been doing this for so long. And for people that are wondering, you have trained award-winning bodybuilders, haven't you? You have trained some of the top in the world as well, haven't you? Aside from having been one of the top when you were competing. Isn't that correct, brother?
Yeah, I've been very fortunate. I've been able to work with some really, really good people. For sure, I continue to do that. So I've been very fortunate in that regard.
Yeah, no doubt. We'll get to two more questions, and then we'll wrap it up. You've been incredible, John, and I greatly appreciate it. People love you. People love you, brother, and I love dialoguing with you all the time. So we'll get to two others. We have any advice on stamina training?
Yeah, absolutely. So with the same principles that you would apply to growing your muscles and making them bigger and stronger, the same principles apply to stamina. So what you do is you add a little bit as you go. So like if you think about weightlifting, if you want to get stronger, maybe you add 5 pounds or maybe you do 2 reps. When it comes to stamina, let's say you're talking about strictly cardiovascular work, like cardio. So maybe you add a couple minutes, then that gets easier. Then you add a couple minutes and that gets easier. Then you make the intensity a little harder. Then maybe, let's say you're riding a bike, then maybe you pedal faster, you change. So the core principle is to challenge your body, which means do something to make what you're doing a little harder each time. I mean, that's really the core philosophy. It's take what you're doing, make it a little bit harder. And then once you start doing that, make that a little bit harder. And that's really what the concept is and what you got to stick to.
That is a really, really good advice. We'll get to one more. Zach and this is a real good one. What is the best, healthiest way to put on muscle mass?
Slow and steady. So, you want to, a lot of people think like, well, if I need 2,000 calories, then if I eat 4,000 calories, I'll grow twice as. Your body can only grow muscle so fast. If it just came down to how much you ate, then trust me, when I was younger, I would have just sat there and ate 15,000 calories a day. But that's not how your body works. It can only grow muscle so fast. So you only need to eat a little bit more than your maintenance. I like to tell people like a male, 300 to 500 calories is plenty of extra calories.
Yeah.
So let's say for you to just stay right where you're at, totally average. Let's say that's 3,000 calories. I'm just making that number up. Then for you to continue to grow, you might need 3,300 calories. You don't need 5,000 calories. So, and I think a lot of people, when you try to do that, you try to eat that much, it becomes a monumental task, right? And that's like, man, I'm eating all the time. And then you don't do that. And then you feel like, well, I'm failing. I'm not doing it right. I can't eat all this food. And it becomes a recipe where you're for failure, really. Yeah. It's a little more simple than that. And again, you mentioned the word healthy. So if you can imagine someone doubling or tripling their food intake, that's very hard on your digestive system. You're all of a sudden asking your digestive system to digest twice the amount of food it was before. So again, slow and steady wins the race. Slowly build your calories up, and that's going to give you the kind of the raw material to build muscle. But then you actually have to weight train. Like you can sit around and eat all the steaks and eggs that you want, but if you're not weight training, you're really not going to gain any significant muscle. The stimulus still for muscle building is actually weight training. So there's no way to avoid that. And the weight training, again, you want to make it incrementally harder as you go. You don't go in the first day and say, I'm going to train like Mr. Olympia did in this article I read. No, you just train, you just do what you feel comfortable with, and then you start building little by little. Same thing with your diet. Just build up little by little. That's the best advice I can give you on that.
And John, I would argue that that is the most essential kind of advice, because you're not going to put on 20 pounds of muscle overnight. Do it gradually. Do it the healthy way. Take care of your body. Take care of your diet. Try to eat and remain as healthy as possible. And you're going to look in the mirror. You're going to notice over time that you're making those gains. And really, I'll get your thoughts on this before we wrap up. My advice would also be very similar to yours. Make it a part of your life. You got to get up every day and drink water. You got to eat food. Make lifting part of that, part of your life, and your life will change drastically.
Yeah, I don't wake up and go, man, I wonder if I'm going to lift weights today. It's a part of my life. If it's a day to train, I want to go train.
Yep.
The other thing I would say is to try to have fun, enjoy it. You know, like if it becomes a drag, and like you're not going to be excited about every time you go to the gym. I would be lying to you if I told you every single time I go to the gym, I can't wait to get in there. I'd be straight lying to you.
Yep.
But in general, you should have fun. You should enjoy it. So that's why picking the right exercise program is important, to do things that you're enjoying. Like if you hate to bench press, and I said, well, I want you to start doing, William, I want you to start doing 10 sets of bench presses every time you're in there. You'd be like, man, I hate benching. I don't want to do that. You know, so enjoy it, have fun. When you win those little battles and make little improvements, be happy about that. Relish those little victories that you have, because it's the long game. It's not what you do in a month or two. It's a year, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. In my case, over 30 years. All those little tiny improvements add up. You know, if you only do that over a month, it only goes to here. But if you do that over 10 years, all those little improvements will go like this. You know what I mean? So have fun, enjoy the process, enjoy the little victories that you get. If you don't seem like you're making progress every single time, don't beat yourself up. Nobody does. Yeah. I don't get stronger every time I go into the gym. It doesn't. That's a myth that people do that. That's a complete myth. So, but just enjoy it.
Brother, you've been incredible. I thank you very much for your time, as usual. You've been amazing. You've been a wealth of knowledge. And God willing, the next time people see me and you together, we'll be together filming together. God willing, everybody, as long as they.
That's right.
Yep, we'll be together.
That's right. I better get stronger so you don't kill me.
Brother, before we wrap up, and I know you're going to push me to the limit when we work out together, but I'm going to try and push you as well. It'll be great. We're going to have a blast. Before we wrap up, put a plug in for anything you're doing. You got anything you're working on? Anything you supplement? Anything you got in your mind, brother? Anything?
I mean, I'm very, very proud of my supplement company, because we have actual real good supplements in an industry that isn't so good sometimes. So I'm very proud of Granite Supplements. I mean, anybody would want to check out our line on Granite, that would make me very happy.
And I'm going to put another plug in by telling everybody, go check it out. I've looked at John's products, and I'm not merely endorsing it because John's my friend. You have legit products out there in really a very saturated market, where if people don't know better, they'll grab a product and they'll look in the back of it. If they don't know how to read it, they won't know better. But a lot of products out there have a lot of filler stuff that is just really garbage. And if people don't know better, they don't know. Your products don't have that. They are legit, and I recommend people go check them out. John, thank you for your time, brother. I look forward to talking to you again. Everybody, check out John's material. And brother, just so you can know, we will all be praying for you and your beautiful family. John, thank you for joining me, brother.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure. I look forward to seeing you.
God bless you, brother. You take care.